Hello, hello, hello. Check your radios, please. First, Julia, check your radio, please.
Oh, yeah.
Pushing these chickens. Sure. Take one. Allez. C'est ma région. Dis-moi. C'est ma région. Tu as qu'à dans d'autres pays d'abord. Urus gay je moda. Senzi madre do. Dos nem şaş. Di Spanish ki yok zaten. Nare yimada da ko shi mutin da wala. Inda ro ji budi nan shi da ji ne hawo masa. Mon lo shi da shi. 세대 야제면 그든 선디 김인즈만네 셔즈의 장승이 가래 아네 오 셔즈 김 소리 너무 많이 나와. 섭취돼. 가든 넘버 기회는 표시지 인기가 섭취돼서
그래. 이거나 진짜.
Tama dendi re. Ya mala. 97了。
估计得买过来了，包了买给你调过的这个。那是拿汽车走。
那用尽了那没被滚进了滚来了被就下，哪个能下？本地少数嘛的，本地少数嘛的。So this is the prayer called Belden Sasum, the glorious in the three realms of existence, or the planes of existence. Jeremy, niente. 名的。Gidiyoruz yemde deş. Gidiyoruz yemde deş. So, of reciting this very precious verse of praise to Master Tsongkhapa, which is full of blessings. I, on this occasion of the 600th anniversary, death anniversary of Tsongkhapa, and this auspicious place and auspicious occasion of having His Holiness presiding over this gathering, August gathering, so to His Holiness Dalai Lama and Gaden Rinpoche, Gaden Rinpoche, and then the Sherpa and Sherpa and Jiangzi Sheje Rinpoches and Samdong Rinpoche, and the President of Central Tibetan Administration, the Speaker of Parliament, and the representatives of the three pillars of Central Tibetan Administration, including the Kalun of Religious and Cultural Affairs, and the scholars from the various institutions around the world, and the Indian dignitaries, local Indian dignitaries, and the general public. So on this occasion, just as the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, in his gave teachings on emptiness, impermanence, and selflessness, and so forth, in various places such as Varanasi and other places, on the basis of which there have been great developments and progress in Indian philosophical and spiritual traditions, and eventually the great masters of the Nalanda, glorious Nalanda monastic institution, developed the system of logic and reasoning in India, and the Tibetans have translated over 5,000 different texts from India and brought Buddhism to Tibet. And our people have also left great legacy in logic, epistemology, and philosophy, and so forth. And particularly Tsongkhapa has left a great legacy in this tradition of the Buddha. So with this short introductory remarks, I would like to present the rest of the programs in English.
You are the Avalokiteshvara, the great treasure of objectless compassion. You are the Manjushri, embodiment of stainless wisdom.
This is the
You are the Vajrapani, the destroyer of all dark forces. You are the crown jewel among the learned ones of the snow, land of snow. I supplicate at your feet, O Lord Tsongkhapa. With these words, today we are gathered here on this very special occasion of 600th anniversary of the Mahaparinirvana of Tsongkhapa, Lord Tsongkhapa. And on this very special time, on this very special location, in the venue of the monastery, which was established by Tsongkhapa himself, and a very special occasion where His Holiness the Dalai Lama has kindly presided over this gathering. On this occasion, we have His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Kyabji Teaching Tojichang, and the former Tirumbuche, Sumi Shajang Chojanabanyi, and the Chonangs, the Prime Rinpoche, and the Turkus and Geshes, and the gathering of the Sangha members. Honorable Sikyong of Tibetan Administration Establishment, the President, the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament, Honorable and the Chief Justice of Tibetan Establishment, Dharamsala, the scholars who have come from abroad, from different countries, to attend the 3-day conference, international conference, and the local authorities of the district, and the Dhamma friends and brothers and sisters who have come from different countries. When Buddha turned the wheel of the Dharma at different places and gave the teachings of impermanence, dependent origination, and selflessness, that brought a revolution in the field of philosophy and spirituality. And in the subsequent time, the masters of Nalanda, Vikramashila, and Dakshashila, they investigated the realities and brought sophisticated systems of philosophy and epistemology and logic, which made a great contribution to the Indian philosophical system and knowledge system, and which influenced many of the other Indian philosophical schools. And that very tradition went to Tibet, and in the course of which more than 5,000 texts were translated into Tibetan, and with the translation, they carried the transmission of the knowledge and transmission of a spiritual lineage in Tibet. The Tibetan masters of all the religious traditions have made immense contribution in the exploration of reality and further advancement of philosophy, epistemology, and logic, and other fields of disciplines. In this course, Master Tsongkhapa made a significant contribution to philosophical systems and the entire system of Tantra and Sutra. So on this occasion, we are gathered here, and on this today, this very special ceremony. In the beginning, we have already completed the illumination of lamps and offering of mandalas by Kanden Tirumbuche, Shajang Chojanabanyi, and the Rinpoches of these two monasteries to His Holiness. And now I would like to request Kanden Shastri Dazang's Abbot, Venerable Abbot, to give his welcome speech.
passionate with compassion to beings in the triple realm, the king of the profound and sacred Dharma, Manjushri himself, your altruistic aspirations have ripened timely to be the protector of the Dharma and beings. You are praised by the billions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as the treasury of the great excellent intelligence. You are our refuge, magical manifestation of the three Bodhisattvas lineages. Manjushri, Avattakeshwara and Vajrapani, who has transcended the triple world with your renown that you deserve, brilliant with the supreme wisdom, like Manjushri himself, you share your wisdom light profusely. In great compassion, you are Avalokiteshvara himself. You shower the drizzle of nectar and love and compassion. You are the master of sacred teachings himself, Vajrapani, complete with all the might, spontaneously transforming the world into the peaceful realm, the sole regent of the Buddha in the world today. May you, your Holiness, Savior of gods and humans, be victorious. So with these auspicious verses, on this 600th death anniversary of Tsongkhapa, I, on behalf of all the Gelugpas, particularly the abbots, julkus, lamas, and the monks of Gaden monasteries inside and outside of Tibet, would like to pay my deepest respect to Your Holiness, the Dalai Lama, touching my folded hands at my heart for graciously accepting our request to preside over this August gathering in commemoration of the 600th death anniversary of Tsongkhapa, who passed away in 1419, the year of the earthquake. The excellent master Tsongkhapa, who passed away in the year. So, with my due respects to His Holiness, the Gaden Rinpoche, the former Gaden throne holder, then the Sharze and Jangje Chojes Rinpoches, and Chonang Regent, and Professor Samdong Rinpoche, and the monks, abbots and monks, former abbots and so forth, and the geishas, and the rest of the monastics from the various different monastic institutions, and the President of Tibetan Central Administration, the Supreme Justice, Chief Justice of the CDA, the Speaker of the Parliament of CTA, the Colin, or Cabinet Minister of Religion and Culture of CTA, and the representatives of the three pillars of CTA, the leaders and the chief representative of representatives, the CTA in South India, and the heads of the 5 different settlements in South India. Then and everyone else, including those who have not been able to come here but are around the world. So I'd like to pay my respect and say Tashi Delek to everyone. Today, this celebration is about the excellent teacher who was like the second Buddha, second founder of the teaching of the Buddha. So Tsongkhapa himself, referring to Tsongkhapa himself as the great teacher, the unexcelled teacher, and we are gathered here in this auspicious or the place, Gaden Monastery, founded by Tsongkhapa himself. And on the 600th anniversary, death anniversary, so this occasion is international in nature. And it has a very important bearing on the future of our civilization. Today, amongst our guests, we have from Karnataka state, we have given invitation to the Chief Minister and also Home Ministry of the Karnataka state and others, but due to some problem that has happened in Karnataka state, they have been not been able to attend this occasion. So I would like to present a short biography, life story account of Tsongkhapa. Tsongkhapa, the great Tsongkhapa, was born in 1357 in the year fire bird, according to Tibetan calendar, in Tsongkha in the Amdo region. And at the age of 3, he took Upasaka vows or precepts from Karmapa Rebbe Doje. And at the age of 7, Choji Tindra Rinchen gave him the novice ordination. And from a very tender age, he was taken care of, nurtured by Choji Tindra Rinchen, and from whom he received initiations and instructions, as if pouring a full jar of water into another completely. And at the age of 16, he went to the central Tibet, part of Tibet, and from the age of 17 to 24, he studied in the great monastic institutions, the tantric tantras of Goyasamaja, Chakasamvara, and the monastic institution. Sorry, he studied at the monastic institutions of Sangpu, Dewachen, and Gongtang, and Gadong, Gyomolung, and Sulpu, which were in the central part of Tibet, where he studied, where he pursued the study of Prajaparamita, the upper and lower Abhidharmas, Vinaya, Pramana, and Madhyamaka texts that belong to the Sutra tradition. And he completed his studies at the age of 25. From age 25 to 29 in Tsel Kongtang, he did a retreat to do intense study of the text. And he read Kanjur and Tenjur, all the books of Kanjur and Tenjur that have been translated into English very precisely, thoroughly. And at the age of 31, he wrote this great treatise of the Golden Rosary, which is a commentary on the Prajaparamita text, Abhisamaya Alamkara and so forth. And at the age of 32, he gave teaching on 17 different texts in a series of teachings, and gained the fame of being learned, widely and extensively learned one. And then, with regard to pursuing the tantric studies, Rinpoche, as it is said in the prayer, in the past he made a promise or a pledge to combine both the Tantra and Sutra, the understanding of emptiness that is taught in the Sutra, with the Tantric practices. And so, accordingly, without being encouraged by others, he said, since my childhood, from a very young age, I had this great aspiration to pursue the study of Tantra, and therefore, particularly that he had this great aspiration to study all of the tantric sets of teachings. Right from the beginning, he said he had this wish, and Tsongkhapa, at the age of 7, at that tender age, under the tutorship of Chögyö Töntöp Rinchen, he received tantric initiation of tantric teachings, and he also at such a young age, even at such a young age, he did the retreats of the 5, what do you call the Gandapada tradition of Heruka many times. Then, after coming to the central part of Tibet, under the tutelage of Digung Chiangma Rinpoche, he took he listened to the teachings on the Bodhisattva, the generation of Bodhicitta, and received many of the teachings on the 6 Naropa Dharmas, and the 5-fold Mahamudra teachings, and teachings of the Pamodruba and Jigden Gompo's collected works, all of them. And then from Chögyö Lama Tamba, the Sonam Gyaltsen, and others, he received the essential instructions of the Sakya tradition, and particularly from Budun Rinchen. From the disciple of Budin Rinchen Trup, direct disciple, Drapa Datsepa Rinchen Namgyel, and Rinpoche Kyungbol Hepa, and Togden Pa, he received the teachings that have come down from Budin. All the different tantric, 4 different teachings, all the teachings on the 4 sets of tantras were received by him from these masters. and particularly the Go tradition and Marpa tradition of the Tantras and the Pit instructions. All of them he received. And Lama Togden by Yishi, from Lama Togden by Yishi Gelsen and Lama Rinpoche Chogi Pelwa and others, he received the teachings of Kala Chakra that belongs to the Jonang tradition as well. And with the help of Lama Umapa, he received the teachings of the Manjushri cycle of Dharma, the unique teachings of that cycle of teachings, and lots of Kenshin Choyop Sangbo from him, and also Lhota Trubjin Nangwa Gelsen. He received teachings on Lamrim and the training of mind tradition that belonged to the Cho Adisha tradition. And therefore, he became a master of all the different Tibetan Buddhist traditions that were extant at the time. So, from the age of 17 to 36, he studied all the different subjects that are under the Sutra and Tantra, as well as this other secular subjects. And he became an unexcelled scholar of Tibet. And at the age of 36, at the behest of his special deity, Manjushri, he left to live a hermit life. And together with him, he took his 8 main disciples to Ulka Chulung and other places of solitude, remote places, and depending on only on meager food and drinks and clothing and so forth, they pursued meditation intensely. He pursued meditation practice intensely. So he spent his time in meditations mainly. And at the age of 38, he renovated the Jingchi Hakang temple. Jingchi Champa Mare. And at the age of 40, Nyelme Sengizong, in Nyelme Sengizong, he clarified or gave clarification, teachings clarifying on the Vinaya practice. And so even to the minor practices, minor practices of Vinaya were practiced very with full zest, and so Vinaya being the foundation of all good qualities that one can develop. So he emphasized the practice of celibacy, and he had claimed that none of the infractions of Vinaya and such as the four defeats, the 13 remainders, and the gross infractions have never touched him. I mean, he never broke those vows at all, he had claimed. So in this way, he actually founded the foundation of the practice of Dharma. And then again, he went to Olkar at the behest of Manjushri and did his practice where he viewed his master and his chief meditation deity as inseparable, and made his supplications to them, and underwent the practice of purification of negativities and the accumulation of merit. He So call it. So the abbot is completing his speech. So with this, may His Holiness live long, and may His Holiness's visions of the promotion of human values, religious harmony, and also the spread or the preservation and promotion of the Tibetan culture, tradition, religion, and so forth, as well as the revival of the ancient Indian knowledge in India, be fulfilled. And I also request His Holiness to visit our monastery again and again. Thank you. Next, we have a few launching of books, few books. First are the 6 volumes of biographies of Tsongkhapa.
We have a series of few books to be released by His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Well, 6 volume
The first one is
biographies of Tsongkhapa.
The compilation of the Tsongkhapa's biography, compiled by the anniversary organization committee. The second one is Nibadi Kyawa Kishi Tubden Chimbala ne Inge to Sartum Nawe Namtar. The second one is the recently released published
biography, a book
biography of
Buddha in the land of snows by Dr. Tubden Chimbala.
Somebody Je Namtar Debe Jungu Pidurma The third one is Buddha Chermbuche's biography, Namtar Debe collated version published by Gyudu Monastery. Shivadi Kezab Jeda Kerub Jinigi Namtar Puchik. The fourth one is the combination of the biography of Gyaltsabji and Kedubji by the organizing committee of this anniversary. And Ngabadi, Chi of Sumbum Ki, Sumbum Dutik Kane, Chokdi Shuba, Shushimbe Kungne, Ni Lamrim Chemotang, Narim Chemoni, Unji Shuju. The fifth one is critically edited version of biography of Tsongkhapa and his 2 disciples being published by the editorial board of Yapse Sum.
So biographies of the Dalai Lamas and the Panchen Lamas compiled by Gyalong Thubten Yarpem.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Panchen Rinpoche's series of their lives, biography of their lives.
Next is Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World in Braille.
The seventh one is the brailled version of His Holiness's book, the Beyond the Religion.
So I'd like to request the compilers and the authors of these different books to come up for an audience. Lada, Torin Lobdi, Lubchi Mare. Ming Labora. The next Drisha. Diro. Mare. Yang ni much paper Ramasa. Darukundi Lamasa. Next, we have the Khampo Lama Chogi Jamso.
I would like to request the abbot of Mongolian Gaden Monastery, Venerable Lama Chogi Gyatso, to speak few words.
그게 그래. Lama is the Buddha, Lama is the Dharma, and Lama is Sangha. Yeah, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I pay homage to the Lamas. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the champion of peace in the world, the Dharma King in the Triple Realms, and the Gaden Rinpoche, Gaden Trisul Rinpoche, and Sharzin Changde Shuje Rinpoches, and also the abbots, former abbots, and so forth, and the scholars who have attended the international conference on Tsongkhapa, and the special guests who have come on this occasion, as well as the monks and nuns, as well as general public, Tashidelek. To everyone. So 벽에 신고 벽에 장문도 첩시 믹스마사 The Buddha himself had prophesied Tsongkhapa, who is the Tsongkhapa, who was the second Buddha, on this 600th death anniversary of Tsongkhapa's death anniversary of Tsongkhapa. I feel honored to be able to attend this occasion commemorating the 600th year of Tsongkhapa, Gaden Lachi, and on the 7th of December 2019, we in Mongolia, all the monastics as well as lay people have gathered to say the prayer written by Gaden Lachi, which is a praise to Tsongkhapa. And we also convened in a scholarly conference on Tsongkhapa in Mongolia. So this shows that we share the common tradition with Tibetans and with regard to the Buddhism in general and particularly the Tsongkhapa's tradition. Altan Khan, who had connection with the third Dalai Lama, and at that time the Mongolian leaders, kings, and the general population of Mongolia helped in the propagation of the teaching of the Buddha in Mongolia. I consider that to be a very skillful means. And in the great monastic institutions of Tibet, the Densasum and so forth, as well as the tantric monasteries, many Mongolians have entered and sought admission and became great scholars, and then they also spread the teaching of the Buddha in Mongolia. In Thakurel in Mongolia, It was known that there were over 100,000 monks in Mongolia. In Takurel itself, it is said that there were 10,000 monks. So what this shows is that Mongolia has produced from these different monasteries countless scholars and practitioners and hundreds of the scriptures were inside this monastery. Regarding Kagajizun Tamba, under the instruction of Kagajizun Tamba, in 1910, they practiced the rainy season retreat for 3 years. In the past, the connection link between Tibet and Mongolia was very strong, but in the meantime, both the countries suffered greatly. But in 1979, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, under the organization of the Buddhist Conference for Peace, His Holiness was able to visit Tibet. And in 1990, and from then until 1990, there were very few monks, and we have also started sending monks from Mongolia to study in Dharamsala.
So from that onwards, from 1990 onwards, so Mongolia became an independent country and they gained religious freedom. And from then onwards, they have requested His Holiness visit. And they've maintained relationships with the Tibetan administrations back in India and private office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And through that, they were able to send a huge number of monks to different monastery institutions in India, especially in Saraji and Gomang Monastery. And so due to the blessings of being able to send monks to these different monasteries over many years, so therefore I wanted to express my heartfelt thank you to His Holiness and Tibetan administration and the abbots and monastery institutions for their kindness in accepting Mongolian monks into their monastery. And we will never forget the kindness of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, your kindness, and we revered you and honored you as the greatest Lama of this world.
Tsongkhapa намын ёсыг олон мэрэгт үзэл байшингаа явдлын үднээс сайшаа магтсан байдаг. Ялангуяа үндэсний багш дээдгийн нэгэд 14-р даалал ам болон бусад дээдс мэрэгтийн ач хэмжээлээр Tsongkhapa-гийн шашин дэлхий дахин төгөн дэлгэрч байна. Язгуур үндэсний багш дээдгийн нэгэд 14-р даалал ам болон бусад дээдсийн хөлмийн 100 галбаар батжиж үйлсүүдийг нь улам агуу ихээр дэлгэрхийн зүйтэй ерөөлийг дэвшүүлье.
아니 담당기 대사카도 로늘 지시면 로늘와 얘는 소고 타주 남네 아니 안개 담배.
So from the monks studying in the different monastery institutions, we have also many who graduated as Geshe-Laramba from these monasteries, and the numbers will continue to grow in future. So this just tells us that we do have a special connection, a spiritual connection with Tibet over many years, and that what we have, the connections over past decades and centuries, we are hopeful that in the coming years and decades, we'll be able to revive and restore connections, and may Buddha's teachings prevail in Mongolia in the coming years, and this is my hope and my belief. And finally, I pray for the long life of Your Holiness, and may you stay for long. And may your teachings spread all over the world. May Buddha's teaching live for long in this world, and especially the Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings may prevail in this world. With these prayers, Tashi Delek, thank you. May Buddha's teachings spread to all parts of the world. The abbot of Gaden Monastery in Mongolia have briefly tell us about the relation that Tibet and Mongolia have for many years, and the present situation about the monks studying in different monasteries in India.
The abbot of Soba Kanden Gomba, Mongolian Kanden Gomba, for reflecting on the historical relation between Mongolia and Tibet. And after the political interruption in between, now it is being revived, and it is in full swing in terms of education and cultural advancement.
Scholarship, Tsongkhapa scholarship.
So next is awarding the Tsongkhapa scholarship program initiated by Gaden Lachi, which is awarded to 6 scholars in a year who are specialized in a special field.
With the initiatives of Gaden Lachi, a sponsor has donated a sum of rupees 35 lakhs to the Department of Education, Tibetan Administration, Dharamsala, and this is to institute a scholarship called Tsongkhapa Scholarship for 6 students for 10 years to do their research. Thank you very much. After this address by the Honorable Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile.
manifestation of Avalokiteshvara. So on the commemoration of the 600th anniversary of Lama Tsongkhapa's Parinirvana, on this celebration, I welcome Your Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, and my greetings also goes to Gaden Rinpoche, the former Gaden Rinpoche, Sherpa Chuje, Jangpa Chuje Rinpoche, the abbots and the former abbots of monasteries, Chief Justice of Tibetan Administration, President of Tibetan Central Administration, and I, on the behalf of Tibetan Parliament, conveys my greeting to all of you. Though the deeds of Lama Tsongkhapa are so vast that we cannot conceive, but today on this great occasion, I would like to state a brief life story of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa is the founder of Gelug tradition and who has awakened, who has generated bodhicitta in front of Yawo Ombuto. And he was born in 1357 in Tsongkhapa, and he was named as he was ordained by taking the Upasaka vows at the age of 3 from the 8th Karmapa Rinpoche, and he was named Losantaba at the time. And he studied for many years, and when he was 27 years old, he was ordained as the bhikshu through the abbot of Sudun Rinchen, and so on. Then after that, Rinpoche has started to do the studies on the perfection of wisdom teachings, especially from masters such as Nyedanta Shisenge and so on. And subsequently also study in the field of middle-way philosophy and so on. And ultimately realize the very profound view of emptiness and attain the supremacy of a great learned among the Tibetan scholars. And 14.9 among the great deeds that one of the greatest deeds of Lama Tsongkhapa is the establishment of Gaden Lhasa Molam Chemo, the annual prayer festival. And through such great deeds, Lama Tsongkhapa has worked towards the preservation and prevalence of Buddhist teaching all over Tibet for many decades. And on this day, Lama Tsongkhapa finally passed away. And after that, in 1420, the great scholars assembled at Gaden Monastery, and they started special prayers and retreat on the 3 deities of Gaya Samaja and so on. And from that onwards, it started. The special practice is Gaden Monastery, and it comes around 600 years today. So though there is no religious freedom in Tibet after 1959, but in exile we get a special opportunity to study and practice the Tibetan Buddhism, which is all due to the kindness of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. And when we came into exile in 1959, it's only the sky and the land that we know. And also due to the different weather conditions and the water and food and so on, so we all encounter a lot of hardships. And also, when the first monastery institutions were re-established in India, a lot of challenges were there, but His Holiness took really great initiatives and worked towards the establishment of these monastery institutions in India. So this is something we have to remember, His Holiness' kindness. And today, on the celebration for the 600th anniversary of Lama Tsongkhapa's Nirvana, we have to remember the kindness of His Holiness, who have really worked towards the preservation and prevalence of the Buddhist teachings in general, and particularly Lama Tsongkhapa's teaching. And I also wanted to extend my thank you to the organizing committee and all the staffs and the people involved in making this great event a success. And before His Holiness arrival here for this conference, Gaden Lachi and Shabachuche and Chambachuche has bestowed various initiations on Guya Samaja and Vajrabairava and Chakra Samvara. I also want to express my thank you to this great Gaden Lachi and so on, and also to His Holiness for conferring the long life initiation on Jetse Zimma and so on. So therefore, a lot of events were organized in the memory of remembering Lama Tsongkhapa on this great event. So in Tibet, nowadays the situation is so bad that it's not even possible for them to keep a picture of His Holiness in their homes and temples. And without the permission of the authorities in Tibet, they were not even allowed to hold any teachings or religious processions and so on. So compared to that, we are in exile here, and due to the kindness of His Holiness, we enjoy the freedom of democracy, and the leaders and the monastic efforts who all have worked hard towards the preservation of these great teachings and have preserved the teachings for many, many decades. And I wanted to reassert here that you all have to work towards the preservation of teachings in future. And as Lama Tsongkhapa himself pays special supplication to Manjushri, and that in his text it is written that we should not be satisfied with the fewer studies of limited number of texts or not understanding the meaning in detail, but we have to critically investigate the texts and study them in depth. So similar to these advices, His Holiness have also told us about the importance of studies. And finally, I pray for the Buddha's teaching to prevail all over the world with these prayers. I pray for the long life of His Holiness and the other great Dhamma teachers all over the world. May all beings live in peace. And from the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for reflecting on the importance of the 600th anniversary of
Parinirvana of Tsongkhapa. So after this, Dichelia,
Next is the unveiling of the books compiled on the science and Buddhist science, science and philosophy.
The philosophy abbreviated version.
The 3 volumes of the text. 7 lessons. Which is one? My prayer to His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, my respect to Gaden Lachi and Shajang Chujan Namani and other Rinpoches, Tulgus and so on. The President of Tibetan Central Administration, the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament, and all the other dignitaries. So, one of the greatest achievements of His Holiness is to compile a special volume on the Buddhist science, which are compiled from the sutras and the tantras. His Holiness is initially instructed in 2011 to the abbot of Namgyal Monastery, Tumdo Rinpoche, to work on this project, and Khyentse Rinpoche has really worked hard to the achievement of this project, and with 3 members, a 4-member committee team was formed to work on this project. And today is the day to celebrate the completion of that project. So the compendium of the Buddhist science and compendium of the philosophies, I would like to state a brief history behind how it all unfolded. In June 2010, so His Holiness instructed Namdra Khyentse Rinpoche to do this project, and also to Jishe Tupten Belsang, Jishe Tupten Yarpel, and so on, to work on this project. And they came up with the first rough outline of the text. And the draft version was shown to His Holiness, and then around 70 geshes from the different universities were invited to do a very thorough investigation and debate on these topics, and also doing editings and comparisons. And from time to time, they have re-edited these volumes. An editorial team was formed, which was headed by Namdra Khyentse Rinpoche and Jishe Tupten Yabela and Jishe Tupten Jimba, and so on. So first we have invited 6 editors from 6 monasteries, Serje Jishe Yamaswanam and Jishe Chamba. They too have served for a few months, but then they cannot continue due to their own engagements as respective monasteries. Then after that, the abbot of Sharzan Monastery, Yeshu Chanjub Sangye, and Jabong Gomang Losang Kechok, and 2 more. So 4 of them work towards have taken the responsibility as the editors of this project, and they have worked towards till the completion of this project. as a responsibility for editing. And while doing the editing, even one they went through very detailed, looking at even each and every detailed part of the text. And we have also received special contribution from the private office and and I also have worked towards the possible of completing this project. And also there is special contribution from different monastic scholars. So this project cannot be completed without the contribution from these great scholars. So first we have 2 extensive volumes. So total we have 7 volumes with 1 abbreviated one and 6 extensive ones. And within this we also have 2 textbooks on science and 1 concise one which has already been unveiled by His Holiness last year, 2014. It was already unveiled and printed, and the first volume was also translated into English, and also it is still being translated in Hindi, Korean and Vietnamese, and the project is still going on, and we hope that the prints will come out soon. So today we have here the 2 volumes and also 1 volume on science. And also we have printed in blocks and traditional block system of this 7 volume, and we are going to present all this to His Holiness here today. And while doing this project, so we not only rely on the views of the other schools, which are especially the non-Buddhist schools, but we have went thoroughly through them and investigate each another. And the second volume, we have especially paid attention to the presentation of the 2 truths which are coming from different philosophical schools, and also the valid cognitions and the other things coming from Pramana texts also are already listed in these books. So this is brief about the content of the text. And this project is actually aimed for the benefit of the whole sentient being in this world, and with an aim to preserve the Buddha's teaching for many hundreds of years to come, and making possibility for everyone to have access to these great teachings. So this is from the editorial team. Thank you. 아무도 소리. So this one is Chisa Dongche, first Yangde Rinpoche, then Shirziken Rinpoche, Chanju Sangye, Chisa Dongche, and Kishin Awan Sangye La. They're from the editorial team. It's from Gomang Monastery. This is from the principal of Namgyal School, Monastery School, Yishitobden Yarbel.
Ani ki ruke Tsongkhapa ki tolia ani tunjuru da rongdik nangkin sote kha chiliya ngangchu leki sejur sendip shuayin. Now I would like to request Your Holiness to kindly give appreciation certificate to some of the main facilitators of 600th anniversary event.
Da.
After this, I would like to request the Sikyong of Central Tibetan Administration to speak few words on this occasion.
Today, on the celebration of the 600th anniversary of Lama Tsongkhapa's Parinirvana, and on this special occasion, I would like to greet and pay my respect to His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and Gaden Lachi, the abbots, tulkus, geishas, the members of Sangha, and distinguished speakers coming from different countries. And also there's a lot of foreigner visitors here, and Tibetan parliament members, speakers, and other dignitaries. On the behalf of Tibetan cabinet, I would like to greet you all. The achievements of Lama Tsongkhapa are very extensive, and Karambiche and also the speaker have spoken very detailed in this matter. So I came here especially for this conference, and today happened to be Gaden Lachi. And also, this Gaden Monastery is the seat of Rinpoche himself, and I consider this as very auspicious for me to come here today. And we can consider this also as a great achievement of Lama Tsongkhapa. And through his kindness and through his achievements, not only to these great learning centers in Tibet, but we can see that his Lama Tsongkhapa brought a very special change and a new revolution to the studies of Buddhism in Tibet. And if you look at the recent history after 1959, hundreds and thousands of monasteries were destroyed in Tibet, but due to the kindness of His Holiness since 1970s, in Tibetan exile, we have been able to re-establish most of these monasteries in India, especially with Sarah Gaden and Drebung and the other great learning centers. And in these monasteries, so Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings and his texts were studied very critically, and we can see that his teachings are still alive here. So when we speak about Nalanda University, it dates back to the 2nd century, before 2nd century BC and so on. But so the question here is whether the Tibetan traditions can last for 1,000 years or not. And my understanding and the belief is that and Tibetan Buddhism is the teaching and the religion that is much, much needed for the next decades and the next century. And this is a religion which is equivalent, which is suited to the economics and also the schools and the general public and so on. When Lord Buddha came to India, at that time there are non-Buddhist schools and their traditions already prevalent in India, but Lord Buddha brought a revolution to India at that time, and due to his great understandings, so he was able to spread the Buddhism in India. So after 13th century, we can see that the Buddhism declined in India, and due to many reasons, and one of the reasons may be the presence of the large communities of Muslims. And if you ask the European people, the general population, about whether you believe in religion or not. So you can see that surprisingly there are more non-believers than believers. And even in the United States, it's the same case. So therefore, the countries which do not believe in religions, where there are a large number of non-believers, are growing day from day. But in Tibetan Buddhism, through the study of our psychology and mind training and techniques and meditations, we have the potential to help people generate peace of mind. And through our teachings, we have the capacity to benefit large people. Even when we speak about economics, and the economic, it's not just to make profit, but to benefit the people. So this is a way to explain, and I think Tibetan Buddhism have a great role to play here. So in the coming century, I can say that the only religion that will be widely accepted all over the world will be the Buddhism. And Lama Tsongkhapa himself has introduced a special tradition in Tibet. And I can say that His Holiness and Jeremiah are not just from the same village, but they're all both revolutionaries. And His Holiness has also introduced a new system of studying the direct discourses and the commentary discourses, and also extracted the Buddhist science from these great sutras and compiled these great books. And if we speak about the knowledge and the wisdom, this is the kind of a seed that can benefit the general public. Though we are a Buddhist and we are studying Buddhism, but largely it depends on these great universities, the Tibetan Buddhist learning centers. And I feel that very soon we will be very similar to those great learning centers back in the 8th and 9th centuries in Tibet. And now we are having a lot of discussions about accreditation. And it is very important that we have to bring our wisdom to the international stage. And with that, we can say that the great legacy of Lord Buddha and Lama Tsongkhapa can be also brought to the international stage. And as I stated before, if we speak about in Europe, there are more people who are non-believers. And after the First and the Second World War, when there is a huge scientific innovations and development, so the religious community drastically came down. Many scholars feel that and as the economy grows in these countries, so these countries started producing the weapons to defend their country. And they also go to the Muslim countries and tell that as along the development of your economic growth, you too have to buy these weapons to safeguard your boundaries. So that is the case nowadays with Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and other countries. And one of the reasons why these countries are constantly in conflict is because they purchase a huge number of the arms and ammunitions, and they use this to fight. In the coming 20th century, in the last 20th century, in the last 2 decades, Asia has the largest number of economic growth. And Asia has been the largest market for the arms and ammunitions in the last 5 years. So the one reason is that as the economic grows in Asia, So Asia automatically happens to be the largest buyers of these arms and ammunition. So therefore, people predict that in coming years, if a large-scale war can happen in Asian countries, and if that happens, so the China and India and some other countries definitely will go into competitions. And just few days back, the defense budget of United States, so they have listed the China as a term for 200 times. So therefore, U.S. also wants to compete with China in terms of the arms and ammunition sale and purchase. So therefore, when these countries laid out their policies in terms of economic and defense, so they also take stock of what's happening all around the world, especially in Asia and China. So therefore, when this happens, even in the Buddhist countries, it may happen, and also in China, when this happens, we can see that if such a big conflicts happen in China, then there may be also divisions happening in China within different groups and so on. And if you look at a lot of terrorism activities over many years, so many of these use the religions, and on the name of religions, the different terrorism activities happen, and different terrorist groups were formed all over the world. So if we feel that we are Buddhists, and then such things cannot never happen in our country, then we may be mistaken. If you look at the Myanmar and also in other Buddhist-dominated countries, even such conflicts happen. So one of the largest selling news magazines on the Times front page, there is a caption of Buddhist terrorism. So this is something alarming, and automatically it links us with China and India and so on, and with that ripple effect, some consequences happen in India and China as well due to what happened in Myanmar. So when that happened, automatically a lot of discussions happen in these Buddhist countries also. So as for the Tibetans, of course, even our own freedom struggle is based on non-violence, and that is our main foundation principle as led by His Holiness. So as a Buddhist, if you have to follow the non-violence approach towards achieving any of your goals, so this has to be an important debate in some countries nowadays when such conflicts happen. The case similar to the Myanmar. So I wanted to stress here that those in the monastic institutions, so the students really have to study thoroughly these great works of the 18 volumes of Lama Tsongkhapa and also follow the instructions given by His Holiness. And I feel that the time has come for us to put into practice in our day-to-day life whatever we have studied and what we have heard from His Holiness and these great teachers. If that could happen, the Nalanda tradition has been living for around 1,000 years, and I feel that if that happens, our Tibetan Buddhism can also last for over 1,000 years. So today, on this 600th anniversary of Lama Tsongkhapa's Nirvana, and also the Gaden Lachi, I feel that it's so auspicious for me to present here. And finally, I pray for the long life of His Holiness. May the wishes of Tibetan people back in Tibet be fulfilled.
So, the Honorable President of the Central Tibetan Administration,
Honorable Sikyong, for reflecting on the importance of this day and also your view about the Tibetan Buddhism's contribution that this can make for the peace, to promote peace in the world, particularly in Asia, through the study and education of the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy and its the ethical parts. Thank you very much.
next we have the Gaden throne holder, the regent of Rinpoche. Will speak. Tisha Yomara. So today, having attained the Dharmakaya and attained the Sambhogakaya form, or Master Tsongkhapa, so I pay my respect to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Shertsin Changsa churches and the abbots of the monastic institutions, the three pillars of representatives of the three pillars of the CTA, and the other dignitaries, the participants of the International Conference on Tsongkhapa's life, thought and legacy, and to all the public, everyone gathered here, Presidelic. So on the 600th anniversary, death anniversary of Jamgon Lama Tsongkhapa, the great Tsongkhapa, so as Rinpoche himself has said, of all the deeds of the Buddha, his deed of giving teachings is the greatest. And therefore, through this, one must reflect and remember the Buddha, the scholars, and the wise ones. So with regard to the enlightened deeds, as this is said in the verse, that Rinpoche, first in our unique or uncommon aspect, Lama Tsongkhapa was one with the Manjushri, but in the eyes of the common perception, Tsongkhapa underwent study of the sutras and tantras, Samaja Tantra and so forth, and then having whatever he studied, he integrated them into himself in practice and meditation, and thereby attained the achieved the spiritual attainments. And particularly with regard to the profound view of emptiness, Rinpoche demonstrated the truth of the teaching of emptiness and divine origination through reason and scripture. So what the former scholars of the as this verse is said, with regard to the profound view of emptiness, Rinpoche came to comprehend the complementarity of dependent origination and emptiness. And as it is mentioned in Lachi Nyingpo, the true essence of true eloquence, where Rinpoche presents the positions of the four different schools of thought. So with regard to gaining insight into the emptiness and dependent origination, in the beginning, Rinpoche was also admiring the view which is called the Yuemin Memin, neither existent nor non-existent, and was even sat in meditation on that, where he was absorbed in the meditation and in the assembly hall, prayer hall, and didn't, because of his absorption, he was even, he didn't know when the prayer was over. But later, through the practice of purification and the accumulation of merit, as Manjushri instructed him, he went into hermitage, and together with his 8 pure disciples, who were his retinue, who accompanied him, Rinpoche strove in meditation on emptiness. So as he is praised as the charioteer of the Buddha Dharma in the land of snows, so from the point of view of Sutra and Tantra, and so the texts that actually are referred to or identified as Tsongkhapa's special contribution to become the charioteer or the trailblazer of the teaching of the Buddha are Lamrim Chemu from the Sutra side, and then the Rimanga Seldun, the illumination of the 5 stages of the path from the Tantric side. So having studied all the different the school of thought, different schools of thought, Rinpoche not only studied them, but actually thoroughly examined these different philosophical traditions, their systems and assertions, and finally came to understand the Prasangika view to be the highest, as it is mentioned in his Lachi Nyingpo. So just as he made it clear the teaching of the Buddha, both Sutra and Tantra, we should also, through the process of study, reflection and meditation, we need to carry on this legacy. And this is the main way in which we can say we are commemorating Rinpoche. So, in the different monastic institutions, so of course you and the other traditions of Tibetan Buddhism have their own unique systems of thought and so forth, but they should continue to keep up with the tradition, expand their scope of knowledge through study of the Indian commentaries. Of course, you are doing this. I would like to reiterate this point. So what we need to do mainly is first lay the firm foundation of ethics, the monastic discipline, the vows. So on the basis of that, you need to use the knowledge that you have gained through study in practice. So keeping the vows that you have taken, observing them purely is the most important thing. As Manjushri instructed Rinpoche, go through the practice of purification and accumulation of merit, and then also do the analytical meditation on emptiness, as well as training the mind in altruistic spirit of enlightenment, Buddhahood, bodhicitta. So in order to be able to develop a correct view of emptiness, we need to engage in the practice of purification and accumulation of merit. So in the field of the practice of Vinaya, if you are able to do these practices of the view of emptiness and sow the seeds of the practice of emptiness, wisdom of emptiness and bodhicitta, then their fruits will be born. So having gained the experience, one should continue to enhance that experience further so that one gains a direct experience of emptiness and so forth. So any student, if you are a lay person, you should keep the ethics of keeping keeping away from the 10 non-virtuous actions. So in other words, practicing the 10 virtuous actions. And for the monks and nuns, of course, you have your own monastic vows that you should keep. So with that as the basis, you should keep up with your practice of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. It's not enough just to have the knowledge of the Dharma, but one should actually put them into practice. So in order to be able to see what is right and what is wrong, what are to be abandoned and what are to be adopted in one's practice of the Dharma, there's no way you can do that without actually understanding what are those practices which needed to be abandoned and what are those practices which need to be adopted. And therefore you need to pursue the study of the Dharma. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama time and again advises us to study. So whatever you study and whatever knowledge you have gained, and you should be able to put them into practice to the best of your ability. So I'd like to appeal to everyone to do that. And in the end, I would like to pray for His Holiness, for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live long, and for this teaching of the Buddha to spread, to live long. So with this prayer, I conclude my talk.
I'm very grateful to His Eminence Gaden Lachi Dorji Rinpoche for reflecting on the importance and the contribution of Tsongkhapa to Sutra and Tantra tradition, and particularly to the philosophical system of Buddhism. Now, after this, it is a conferment of Tsongkhapa Award by His Eminence Gaden Lachi Rinpoche on behalf of Gelugpa tradition. So this is being done.
So Buddhism in general and the Tibetan tradition of Buddhism in particular the conferment of the Tsongkhapa Award to His Holiness Dalai Lama by His Eminence Gaden Lachi Rinpoche Lobsang on behalf of Tsongkhapa's Gelug tradition. So though the Chinese have used every means to obliterate the teaching of the Buddha in the land of snow, due to the blessings and the kindness of His Holiness Dalai Lama, the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, all of them, and also the Burn tradition, the indigenous Tibetan religion, have been able to survive and be re-established have been able to re-establish their monastic institutions in exile, and the study and the practice have been kept up with. So His Holiness Dalai Lama has been working hard to keep up with the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, our culture, religion, and to promote human values in the world. And so for all his great deeds, His Holiness has been given this award.
The Tibetan Buddhism, which actually after the invasion of China, systematically it was planned to erase the very identity of Tibetan culture and Tibet's identity. However, when he reached to India, he established the centers for culture and communities and centers of the monastic institutions of all the traditions and the tradition of Bon tradition, and he established the institutions, particularly the institutions of Tsongkhapa, the 3 monasteries and the 2 tantric monasteries, and to make sure that there is a proper flourishment of education and practice in those monasteries, And in addition to that, His Holiness has made a tremendous contribution to world peace in terms of providing a new way of education system in the world by including this system of mind, meditation, and moral ethics, and to bring harmony in religious systems and interreligions. So for all these contributions His Holiness has made, this award has been conferred. Now I would like to request Your Holiness the Dalai Lama to kindly address the gathering.
So today, the Gaden Monastery in exile here at the Tsokchin of Gaden, we are celebrating Gaden Lachi, the death anniversary of Tsongkhapa. So everyone who spoke have praised the life and deeds of Tsongkhapa, and then there are people from different parts of the world, whatever traditional religion you may have belonged to, but today here the people who take pay attention and to take interest in the teaching of the Buddha, and particularly Je Rinpoche's writings and his tradition are increasing. So those who have gathered here with that kind of interest, I would like to thank you all. So on the usually, traditionally, we have the Tenshuk from the Yume monastery on the 24th day of the 10th month, and on the 25th, Gyute would make the Tenshuk offering with their multiphonic voice, while saying their prayers. And traditionally also we used to pay visit the reliquaries of the 5th Dalai Lama and others. And then on the Gaden Lachi, there is this tradition of saying the first Dalai Lama's writing, Shar Kangrima, which is to say in the mountain in the east, on top of the mountain in the east and so forth. And then the 7th Dalai Lama's Nyingdapke in the center of this the lotus at the heart with the 8 petals and so forth. So these were very inspiring prayers in front of the Avalokiteshvara statue. This was done traditionally. I wanted to read this prayer. First is in the Shar Kangrima, which is actually. So this first Dalai Lama received many teachings from Je Rinpoche, and then, as Je Rinpoche himself instructed, the first Dalai Lama went to Tsang. There was a hermitage named Ryo Gangchen. I have been there. So he wrote this prayer, Shar Kangrima, there at Ryo Gangchen. So when the first Dalai Lama was residing in his hermitage in Rio Gangjin, in the east he saw a white cloud floating in the sky. And so seeing that, he said he remembered his master. And in the direction of that white cloud, a body of white cloud, he said there is Gaden Lachi, which is Gaden Monastery, and the master Tsongkhapa and his disciples are residing there. So the fact that my mind has turned towards the Dharma is also due to the kindness of Yapse, the Rinpoche and his disciples. So please take care of me and guide me throughout my lifetimes. I will also strive to uphold the teaching of the Buddha from life after life, as this prayer says. So may I be able to, as it is said in the prayer to Tara, green Tara, written by Gaden himself, he also prayed that he may be able to able to persevere, whatever the conditions may be, to uphold the Dharma. And at his later on in his life, he said that he was getting old, but his disciples have said that you have signs, called visions and signs, which indicated that you will go to Sukhavati, or a pure land. And his response was, I have no wish to be reborn in in Pure Land, but I pray to be born amongst people who are suffering, to serve them. So this actually had I felt moved by this. Though I'm not able to repay your kindness, I will not be let myself be tossed by attachment, anger, and so forth, but strive to uphold your tradition. And so the series of Dalai Lamas have served the teaching of the tradition of Master Tsongkhapa. In the biography of the second Dalai Lama, by Yangpa Chögye, he mentions that the second Dalai Lama was known as Rimebesha Sermova, which means the master of the Yellowhead sect, who was Rime, ecumenical, a non-sectarian, the Yellowhead master. So he studied and learned from the different Tibetan Buddhist traditions, although his main tradition that he first followed was Gelug tradition. And then, because of some connection with the Sakya master, he also received teachings on Gombokur. There's a 70. And then the next Dalai Lamas, such as in particular this fifth Dalai Lama, has left a great legacy, contribution, made a great contribution to all the teachings, all the traditions of the Buddha Dharma in Tibet. And so, while wearing the yellow hat, that is not So the fifth Dalai Lama has written that some of the Gelugpas were not able to uphold the teaching of Tsongkhapa. So it would be better for them to keep up with the teaching of the. And Rinpoche himself has said that the intelligent ones should train their mind in logic, in perfect logic. In Ngagrim Chemo, and where he says first that whether there are non-Buddhists or not in Tibet, but people still have the imprints of non-Buddhist philosophical traditions, and at the end, in conclusion, he said, and through training in logic and training your eyes training in the eyes of logic, you should gain a very firm ascertainment or certitude in the teaching of the Buddha, so that you are not led astray by opponents. And so studying the Tuptas is also very important. So of course, as we say, you have to check the quality of turquoise by comparing the one turquoise with another. And just as you whip a horse for it to run faster, I mean, you should also use reason. So with the perfect reasoning, you should train yourself in the eyes of logic, intelligence, and find ascertainment or certitude in the teaching of the Buddha. So it's very important to study the different traditions, different texts, so that you may be able to gain, you may feel convinced of the teaching or one's own teacher through logic and reason. So therefore it's important to think about the meaning of the teachings rather than just the words. And then next, the first Dalai Lama complains. There are people in this land of snow who, while proclaiming to be upholders of Dharma, they consider other Dharma holders to be the sworn enemy in the Dharma. So with the motivation to cause ruin to others, and with this strong, clinging to some kind of a rigid solidity in things, and still claiming to be of high to have high realization of the path. And these are all things with which are to be which leads one to feel embarrassed. Though one has gone astray into the wrong path, they are angry at those who are sincere practitioners. Are they not possessed by demon? So without not trying to curb or overcome their own the enemies of destructive emotions, people just indulge in gossip and just in debate and arguments. And so this is like trying to avert obstacles that are in the east by doing the Tama offering in the west, and so forth. And so on the Gaden Lachi day, this next prayer is said, also said in the Avalokiteshvara temple in so there was also the tradition of the reciting different prayers that were written by each of the Dalai Lamas in front of their reliquaries that are in Potala. But this particular tradition of reciting these two texts in the Pakpal Hakang, I felt very inspired. So, so in the center of the lotus with the 8 petals at the heart, in the Avaduti channel, so we are talking about here the subtle clear light mind, which is beginningless. So here the homage is paid to Master Tsongkhapa. This is the 7th Dalai Lama's text. And the next verse says that everything in samsara and nirvana. So as it is said in this 22nd chapter of Mula Madhyamaka Karika, which is the examination of the Tathagata, the Tathagata is neither one with the aggregates nor separate from it. The Tathagata is not in the aggregates, nor they are in the Tathagata. What else is the Tathagata? And the Tathagata doesn't possess the aggregates as well. What else is the Tathagata? So this can be actually used to refer to oneself. And I'm neither one with aggregates, nor they are separate from them. Neither am I in the aggregates, nor they are in me. I don't possess the aggregates. What am I? And so, in this kind of analysis, what you don't find is the things having some kind of objective independent existence. However much you try to search for a final identity that is objectively existing, you will not be able to find. And so if things were to have any objective independent existence, then there would be these logical fallacies that the Arya being's mind, which is absorbed in the direct perception of emptiness, would be destroyer of objects. And then the conventionalities of things would withstand ultimate analysis. I mean, and then and that the birth, ultimately there is a birth or a rising of things would not be refuted. And so the point is that you should do analysis into the nature of things to find certainty in how they do not have any objective independent existence. So everything in samsara and nirvana, when you analyze them, nothing can be found, and that mind also cannot be found. So the body and the mind are the factors on the basis of which we posit or designate a person or a being. But if you analyze the person within the body or the aggregates and the mind, and so even the mind itself has no intrinsic existence, and therefore, how nice, how wonderful this nature of how things exist. So when you analyze how things exist, of course, earlier you would have this perception of things having some kind of objective, solid existence as being this. Yourself also, you think that I am here, but when you do critical analysis to search for yourself, you will not find anything as being yourself. Similarly, it's the case with your hand. And a hand is made up of its different parts, the fingers and the palm and so forth. But if you try to find that, the identity, search for the identity of the hand within the palm and the fingers, you will not find anything. So though things have no objective independent existence, they appear to be so. And when you try to negate the objective independent existence in things, you might think you are actually negating an actual object of negation, but still you are left with something, some kind of an object which is existing solidly. And so the seventh Dalai Lama here says that just as the clouds in the autumn sky dissipates, so when you do analysis into the nature of things, what you actually find is that things do not have objective existence, and your clinging to some kind of objective existence might be reduced as your understanding and insight into the nature of things increases. And then what happens is all these appearances of the experiences would dissolve, would just fade away from your view. So the form and sound and all these things, of course, they do exist. But when you have the certainty, or when you feel convinced that they do not have any objective existence, of course, they do exist, form and so forth, but so this teaching of dependent origination is something that no other teacher, the founder and teachers of the different religious traditions have found, but you, the Buddha. And therefore, the term, the name, or the title teacher is, actually befits you. Whereas for others, it's just a flattery. So we talk about law of causality, that things are brought about by causes and conditions, that the causes and conditions help in bringing about some result. And therefore, for the realists, though they use the reasoning of dependent origination, they see that things still have some objective existence. Whereas for the Madhyamakas, this is a contradiction, that things, if they are dependent originated, how can they be independent? And therefore, when you assert independent and self-defined existence in things, there is logical contradiction within your position. And therefore, when you see that things are dependent, you can understand that they are contingent upon other factors. And so in such a diction, the Rinpoche's commentary on Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the such a diction says that there are two ways of how things can exist. They can exist either the way they appear to our mind, or that they can exist by way of mere designation through our language. And therefore, since the first way of existence cannot be the true, therefore the second must be by default true. So in so though everything has no true existence, they are like magical illusion, whatever sound and form and so forth. So this union of emptiness and appearance gives me the conviction of the infallibility of dependent origination. So due to the kindness of my teacher, the qualified teacher, which refers to Chichen Ngawang Choden, I have found this conviction in the final nature of how things exist. So this is what we do traditionally used to recite in the Avalokiteshvara temple in Tibet. So that's all. So on this celebration of the Gaden Lachi has been very successful throughout. So when we commemorate Lama Tsongkhapa, we should think of meditating and cultivating the renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, which are found in his 18 volumes of his collected works. And with regard to the Master Nagarjuna's system of the profound view, Rinpoche, as I mentioned the other day, Rinpoche was, as I said, he was like the second Nagarjuna. So his writings are incredible. On top of that, then we should add Master Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya Avatara for the practice of bodhicitta. It seemed in the past there was no tradition of teaching this text much in the central part of Tibet, and therefore it's important for us to study this Shantideva's text. And then Rinpoche's commentaries on Mula Madhyamaka Karika and the Madhyamaka Avatara, as well as studying the 400 verses and its commentaries, is important. So Jogja Rinpoche used to say that if you are, quite proficient and learned in the 5 major Madhyamaka texts written by Master Tsongkhapa, then you will not be taken astray, led astray in terms of the Madhyamaka view.
Gratitude to Your Holiness for teaching on 2 very important texts and explaining in detail how our philosophical studies and philosophical systems make difference in our daily life, how the gulf between the appearance and reality can be reduced and finally realized. And the actual way of study should be that we should lead towards more peaceful mind and peaceful conduct. And as a sign of our meditation, we should have a lesser afflictive mind. And with these, our study and contemplation should be directed towards the transformation of our life, which can be beneficial. Otherwise, it will be a mere intellectual pursuit. So on this occasion, we are again very, very thankful and grateful. We express our gratitude to Your Holiness for the great teachings. Thank you very much, Your Holiness. And
so, word of thanks by Gaden Lachi
the abbot of Gaden Lachi Monastery to give the word of thanks.
So since the passing away of Tsongkhapa, it's been 600 years, so we are commemorating his death anniversary, 600th death anniversary. So just as we requested, the sole guide of human beings, champion of peace, the supreme leader of Tibetan people, has accepted or agreed to preside over this ceremony. Where His Holiness has been conferred the award
Next, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Gaden Lachi and the abbots and the former abbots, Sikyong, Dr. Lobsang Sengye from Tibetan administration, and also the speaker and all the other speakers here. I express my thanks to all of you. And next, my special thanks goes to the organizing committee, the members and the staffs, and all the people associated with the arrangements, those who are associated with the arrangements of the temple, and also the sponsors, and also the sponsor for this special scholarship program, the principal of the respective schools here, and the representative officers of the Tibetan settlements, and to all those who participate in this celebration, the monks and the lay people. I, on the behalf of all the monks here, express my heartfelt thanks to all of you. Finally, I pray for the long life of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, who is the eye and the heart of the Tibetan people. And may he live for thousands of years, and may he never be touched by any obstacles. And as you have accepted to live for more than 113 years, may we be ever blessed by your teachings from life to life. And may you be able to come to Tibet at the soonest possible time. May you lead all the sentient beings to the land of Avalokiteshvara. And I request Your Holiness to visit again Gaden Monastery in coming years. And we pray that we will have such auspicious occasions from time to time. Thank you. So the ceremony for today is concluded, and I express my thanks to each and everyone.
라